This video will go over inbound ship and inbound ship items. The functions itself is very easy and they're both very similar, so that's why I'm just combining it in this one video. But before getting started, make sure with the extensions that it's installed, that you've activated and added your subscription ID. If it doesn't save for whatever reason, make sure you do it in incognito mode to bypass Google's cache. And secondly, verify that you've added your Gorilla ROI seller nickname. Okay, this is not your Amazon nickname, but this is the one that you've entered into the Gorilla system. And that's what you're using in the formulas. So let's get started. I'm going to delete this because this one formula generated this entire table of what you see on the screen at the moment. You start with Gorilla underscore inbound, and as it auto finishes, completes, I'm going to select the first one, inbound ship, and it's asking me to enter my seller ID or nickname. In this case, it's in cell A1 OAH, comma, and if you don't want to use a cell reference, you can manually type it in, but do it inside quotation marks. But the downside of this is you're hard coding a static value into the formula so that if you want to change the seller nickname or the seller account for whatever reason, you have to manually change it each time. And that's why it's always better just to use a cell reference. By default, this is the only input that you need. Everything else is optional. And if I close this formula out and then load it, you'll see that it now loads the latest 50 shipment IDs, and it's going to give you this entire table of all the information related to your inbound shipments. Now, to get deeper into it, let's say I want to pull in more than 50 or I want to get a specific shipment ID, then the second one is going to be where you can actually enter your shipment ID. So in Seller Central, if there's a particular shipment that you want to dig into, copy and paste that in inside quotation marks because it's a text, and then it's going to isolate that shipment ID and give you the full list related to that. Now, in terms of the status, if you only want to look up, say, the receiving or the complete, you can also do that. So the whole thing is use this info box. It has all the information and you just have to do it one by one or you can skip it, right? So to move to the next one, I'm going to do a space and a comma, and this green highlighter, it's now going to move on to the next field, status. I don't want to put in any filter for a status. I'm just going to skip this, but I do want to update the counts from the last 50 to say the last 100. And so I do this, I press enter, and now it's going to load the last 100 shipment IDs if it's available. Okay, so that's inbound ship. Now, if I do the same thing or similar thing with inbound ship items, as the name suggests, this is to look up the individual SKUs or the individual ASINs. I'm going to select A1 again because it's asking me for my seller ID. So OAH here, comma. Okay, let's start with the most default. So I'm just going to do this basic formula of inbound ship items A1, the seller name. And now you'll see that inside all of these, it will give you a correlation of the shipment IDs with what SKU was entered, with what ASIN was entered, as well as the quantities and the received. So this way you can actually break things down on a shipment and a SKU level to see whether something is being shipped or received. Follow the instructions as usual. Okay, so now it's asking me for a filter. So the filter is, do you want to look up a specific SKU? So if you do a specific SKU or ASIN, and so you can enter that inside quotation marks, and it's going to pull in a list of all the shipment IDs as well as the quantities, the received for that particular SKU. So play around with it. It's very self-explanatory. You just do comma, or if you're in Europe or in a Spanish speaking country, use semicolon instead of comma. So you'll be doing it like this. Okay, received, count. And so read the instructions as to what each filter does and what it's used for. And you may find a particular method that is going to be beneficial for your use case. But in general, a lot of people just use it as the default Just keep it simple like this, and this is more than enough to be able to dig into your own operations related to the inbound shipments.